This week, leading AI chip maker NVIDIA and software company Emerald AI announced they'd be working with AES, Constellation, Invenergy, NextEra Energy, N-Scale Energy and Power, and Vistra to, quote, power and advance a new class of AI factories, unquote. These data centers are intended to be able to connect to the grid faster and, quote, operate as flexible energy assets that can support the grid, unquote. A press release from NVIDIA indicated that the parties would use a new reference design utilizing NVIDIA's latest Vera Rubin chip and its DSX software to help manage power use in real time, modulating demand and coordinating flexible load. Where speed to market is a must, NVIDIA envisions factories using on-site co-located generation and storage as a bridge before they connect to the grid. At that point, the on-site assets would be used to flexibly support the grid. The company also notes that its DSX reference architecture can support flexible AI data centers and help them more quickly connect by virtue of their flexibility. So where does Emerald AI come into play? Well, its conductor platform is intended to orchestrate computational flexibility that would be combined with on-site resources to deliver power flexibility to the grid. As NVIDIA notes, in addition to facilitating those faster interconnections, the approach would reduce the need for infrastructure sized to meet demand peaks. The other companies listed, AES, Constellation Invenergy, NextEra Energy, N-Scale Energy and Power, and Vistra, well, they would build the related energy infrastructure. Power flexible AI factories, NVIDIA claims, can help unlock up to 100 gigawatts of capacity across the U.S. power system. Well, that's a big claim, so let's unpack this thing and put it in perspective. Per the Energy Information Administration, the U.S. hit an all-time peak of 759 gigawatts last July, and it has about 1,300 gigawatts of installed capacity. So in that context, a 100 gigawatt claim is a pretty heady number. Why is data center flexibility so important? Well, first, there's limited transmission and supply available on the grid. In our house, when one is overcommitted, we often say you're trying to put 6 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound bag. In the case of the U.S. power grid, it's more like 7 or 8 pounds. Some utilities are staring at multiples of existing load, and there's no way that the infrastructure of the existing grid, or that which can be built in the next 3 to 5 years, is going to accommodate the expected peak demands. Then there's the fact that the grid is poorly utilized. Estimates are that the load factor, the percentage of energy we use versus the amount we could have used if we ran at 100% 24/7, is about 60%. In the power grid until now, everybody's gotten the capacity and energy they needed at a relatively affordable price, and nobody gets turned away. If we ran airlines that way, anybody who wanted a flight could show up at the ticket counter whenever they want, even 2 or 3 days before Thanksgiving, and hop on a plane anywhere in the U.S., paying, say, $300. The planes would be full for a few days a year, but a lot of the time we'd be able to stretch out across 3 seats and sleep until the airline went out of business. You can't run many businesses the way we run the grid, not with those inefficiencies. So if you build new data centers and they're not flexible, they push up that peak demand, and you have to build new stuff until you run into the fact you simply can't build new power plants and transmission lines fast enough. And supply gets really expensive. Exhibit A is PJM's capacity market, where prices have soared 7 or 8-fold over average historical capacity numbers, with existing and forecasted data loads costing ratepayers an estimated $23 billion over the past 3 auctions alone, per the Independent Market Monitor's recent estimates. Plus, the amount of new demand that can be connected is limited. But if you create more flexibility during those periods of grid scarcity, both by modulating compute loads and tapping on-site supply assets, now you could add more demand to the grid without creating the need to build that new infrastructure. And you could flow more gigawatt hours across the same grid infrastructure, creating economic efficiencies and lowering the per-unit delivery price. 2 Duke University Nicholas Institute studies on flexibility suggested that these types of operations could greatly increase ability to add load and result in economic efficiencies. The first study in 2025 calculated that 76 gigawatts of new load could be integrated into the grid with an average annual load curtailment rate of 0.25% of that load, reducing demand for 0.25% of their maximum uptime. And 98 gigawatts of new load could be integrated at a curtailment rate of 0.5%. A second 2026 study commented that flexible operation can feasibly reduce system costs by tens of billions of dollars over the next decade. It could also lower electricity prices for all participants. Avoiding just 1% or 2% of the peak hours would reduce utilities' new natural gas combined cycle construction costs by 10 to 15%. So conceptually, there's a there. But the available information doesn't really tell us all that much yet. We don't, for example, know how flexible the various compute functions will be that NVIDIA talks about. We don't know it for the large language training models that often run for weeks and months as they build out their neural networks and virtual understanding of our world. Nor do we fully comprehend the potential inherent flexibility in the growing inference function, where the models then perform on demand to undertake the tasks we put in front of them. We have limited empirical data with which to make our assumptions. For example, we know about an Emerald AI data center that was part of the Electric Power Research Institute's DC Flex program aimed at understanding these issues and imparting that knowledge to grid operators and utilities. A data center in July of last year in their program, in a test scenario that was peer-reviewed, reduced power consumption by 25% during 3 hours of peak grid demand, while maintaining AI compute quality. In real time, its orchestrated clusters of NVIDIA GPUs on a job-by-job basis achieved those results. And as of March 2026, Emerald AI confirmed that it has successfully demonstrated power flexibility capabilities at 5 different commercial data centers around the world. The company also announced an initiative with PJM Interconnection, Data Realty, NVIDIA, and the Electric Power Research Institute, in which they will deploy their software at NVIDIA's 96-megawatt Aurora AI factory in Virginia, which will be commissioned by mid-2026. But again, the actual performance numbers are limited in terms of what we know. So we don't really know how much flexibility planners can count on yet. One thing I also noticed about the latest press release, EPRI's DC Flex program wasn't mentioned, which I found more than a bit odd. One other important issue of note, Bitcoin miners in ERCOT got paid millions for participating in demand response programs. During August 2023 heat wave, Riot got paid almost $32 million in ERCOT for cutting demand, something it probably would have done anyway in response to high prices. That kind of giveaway benefits nobody but participating load. If the AI data centers are so anxious to connect to the grid with the goal of making billions, then flexibility and ability to curtail should be a sine qua non. There's also planning risk. PJM's independent market monitor has thus far pushed back hard on the idea of data centers being treated as reliable demand response assets, particularly since PJM doesn't have the capability to enforce precise real-time load curtailments for individual data centers. In their view, the risk is too large. If a small percentage, say 10% of forecasted data loads don't curtail power during a grid emergency, the resulting shortfall in capacity could cost customers billions. In its recent annual State of the Market report, the IMM commented that the market solution is to make data load bring their own generation, which could speed up interconnections. Absent that, PJM should require data centers that don't bring their own generation to be curtailable before other current demand-side customers are called upon. And it comments they shouldn't be paid. This should simply be a precondition for interconnection. So to summarize, the NVIDIA Emerald AI energy supplier announcement concerning flexible load is interesting. Indeed, the economic incentive and technical potential may be there. But until that combination of silicon and electrons proves to be predictably and repeatedly flexible, significant skepticism and caution is warranted. Well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.